All right, and away we go. Welcome. You're listening to the Best of Investing on News Talk 910. And for those of you listening for the first time, here's our format. A few guys sitting around a bar having drinks without the drinks, talking business with you, the audience listening in. I'm your host, Edward Brown, and I'm pleased to have as my co-host Mark Hahn of Pacific Private Money, California's fastest growing private lender, and Robert Spinoza of RPM Mortgage. Our phone number is 888-912-1190. Now write that number down, 888-912-1190, because you're going to use that number to answer the trivia questions for 3 vacations given away during each commercial break. That's right, we're giving away 9 vacations during this show. The vacations are sponsored by Lighthouse Resort and Marina, which is located about 1 hour northeast of San Francisco. The vacations are free. Their only request, a $75 cleaning fee to cover housekeeping expenses. Their website is lighthouse, the number 4fund.com. Check them out. You can also reach them at 916-777-5511. And today's trivia theme is comedians. Thought it'd be a little funny today. Our website is bestofinvesting.com. Check us out on Facebook and YouTube by typing Best of Investing Radio Show. Also on television, Comcast Channel 26 on Saturdays at noon and Sundays at 6 p.m. And today's special guest is Ronnie Moore, who is an accomplished speaker, author, and media guest expert specializing in spoken and written communication. She has a book out called Why Did I Say That? Ronnie, welcome to the Best of Investing.
Thank you. Hi.
Hey, Ronnie, Mark Confair, I got the first question for you. I love the title of your book, Why Did I Say That? With the subheading, Communicating to Keep Your Credibility, Your Cool, and Your Cash.
Right.
Of course, I think your cash being the most important part of that. And so you write in the book about communication issues when dealing with people like car dealers, contractors, and other people whose sole goal is to get our money as quickly as possible. What are some of the primary communication issues?
There are 2 that I think are most helpful, and one of them is to always remember the interest of the person you're talking to. In other words, even though people are friendly is not friend. To be a great person, but you're not there to make a friend. You're there to make a transaction. And don't confuse friendliness and ingratiation and we're so much alike with the fact that their goal, their interest is to get the money out of your hands and into their hands. And when you realize that, you take better care of yourself. That's number 1. Number 2, excuse me, is that often we find, and we find this more in women than men, and I hate to do that to my own gender, but it's not because we're less than, it's because we're raised differently often. We reveal too much. We talk too much about our lives, we talk too much about our weaknesses, and we don't think enough. So we need to think more, talk less.
So is it a mistake then to be overly friendly with salespeople? I ask that question because even though I'm not a woman, certainly I think one of the things that I tend to do a lot is to maybe talk too much in a transaction and be maybe even overly friendly with people I do business with.
Again, I think that it hurts women more because often there's a confusion between friendly and friend. If you are friendly and social, male or female, and you can develop good rapport is often a great foundation for a good professional transaction. But again, there is a difference between friendliness and friendship.
Yeah, sometimes I know going to the gym and just trying to be friends, if I'm trying to just be friendly with a woman, she has a different idea of why I'm trying to be friendly. I'm not trying to pick her up. Just
right,
being friendly.
that's another issue, of course. But I think if I'm thinking about it from the buyer's side, if I'm the woman buying a car or dealing with a contractor, I have to remember that he or she can be very nice to me and friendly and perfectly lovely. But clearly, at the end of the day, I'm the only one taking care of my money.
Yeah, that's right. You're in control of it.
Ronnie, Rob Spinoza here. What's the one thing we should always communicate in these type of transactions? Can you narrow it down or crystallize it into
Yeah, I can. And there are a number. I mean, I have a whole chapter on this in the book. But the one that I always tell people to do whenever possible, and I'm going to clarify that in a minute, is always say you're going to get another bid or estimate, and always do, unless, a few years ago my roof caved in a rainstorm. I really wasn't in the position as I stood in the water in my house to play games and say I was going to get another bid.
Right.
It's really not a game. I mean, if you're going to invest in something that's at least 4 digits in price, I think it's worth 10 minutes to get another price.
Yeah, you always have to be careful of the impulse buying and, today only.
Yeah, and I do think that there is, I certainly respect that in my transactions. If somebody calls me and says, hey, I'm working with someone else or I've consulted someone else, I don't take any offense by knowing that, although I do know that there are individuals in my industry who do, and it will end the conversation or get offended and huff off, and that's that. So
and good for you. I think that's really a great way to look at it. But ultimately, what troubles me sometimes is that often that's when you get your best price and you don't have to get another estimate.
Right.
And that is sometimes troubling because I want to say to the vendor, the salesperson, or the contractor, why couldn't you have given me that price right away?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Well, here's a question for you: is that what is the one thing we should never communicate in these transactions?
Yeah. Good counterpoint.
Desperation.
I absolutely have to have this today. What's your best price?
I think that I'm in the market for a new car, and I'm not a car person per se, but there's this really pretty car that I like, and I went in and I broke all the rules.
Right.
The color, it's so beautiful. And, I had to step away because I realized that nobody would take any negotiating I did seriously because I was too desperate for that car. I think another thing we should never do is reveal things that are too personal. I think that we should save the personal for the personal relationships, and small talk in the business world should be limited to non-taboo topics, the weather, sports,
Sure.
I
don't know, sports in my house can be a little taboo, almost like politics, but I know.
So you are a bit.
Yeah, that's right. When I go, it's funny, when I buy a car, my attitude is always, listen, I'm doing you a favor by getting it off your lot so you don't have to pay interest on it. So how much below cost can I get?
Right.
And it's like, I don't care whether I get the car or not.
Right.
Even though the car is breaking
this
down.
is not revelation, what I'm about to say, but it's worth saying again, which is you're only successful when you communicate through a negotiation when you know you can walk away. And the other person knows you can walk away. Yeah. If your roof is caving in, as mine was literally, and I'm standing on my wall-to-wall carpet in 4 inches of water, clearly I'm pretty desperate. But other than that, I should be able to walk away. It's just a car, and if the roof is sound, it just needs some replacement at some point, you have time to get another estimate, and you have time to walk away.
See, unfortunately, I would have scotch taped an umbrella to the roof and just said, I'm not desperate.
Get a better price.
Yeah, get a better price, exactly.
I like the water.
Yeah.
Do we got time for one more?
Tell you what, we're going to cut to our first commercial break. We're in the studio here with Ronnie Moore, who wrote a book called Why Did I Say That? And for the first person who calls and asks for the book, go ahead, give us a call. Actually, you have to email me, edward@bestofinvesting.com, and say, please send me the book, Why Did I Say That? And then I'll forward that on to Ronnie. Okay, the first trivia question, and again, the theme is comedians. Okay, which comedian often says, I don't care who you are, that's funny, and you're done? The first 3 callers with the correct answer will free 3-day, 2-night stay at the Lighthouse Resort. Their website is lighthouse4fun.com. Call 888-912-1190. That's 888-912-1190 to answer this question. Which comedian often says, I don't care who you are, that's funny, and you're done? 888-912-1190. Make sure to include your name, email address, and speak slowly and spell out your information for us one letter at a time, and we'll be right back. Excellent.
I'm not sure, but I have a good guess.
Okay, hold on. We'll let you guess that when we come back.
All right.
Having fun, Ronnie?
I'm loving it. How about you?
Good. Yeah, we're doing well.
You're doing great.
Okay. I got to save this file, so stay with us for a minute here. And we'll continue on with some of the questions that we have.
And you will mention my website at some point.
Yes. Yeah. Actually, we'll. I'll let you do that at the end. How's that?
That sounds fine.
Okay.
What was the motivation, Ronnie, behind writing this book?
It's interesting. I wrote the book right after the roof debacle. 2 years ago. I wrote it because I felt that whether it's that kind of situation or dealing with your spouse, communication is everywhere, home, work, and I devote my life to it. I decided to take 10 or 12 of the most common times we have to communicate well and to go to chapter 2 it.
Ah. So is this your first book or?
Book. My first book was on written communication, some tricks for writing better and making fewer mistakes. That one is a different book, and that was a couple years before, 2 or 3 years before this one.
Wow, I know at least off the top of my head, a dozen people could use that.
Yeah. Especially like
I'm very proud of
writing
that one. In
emails.
fact, when I started out, I was a professor teaching writing, business writing, and I was teaching them tricks for don't make that mistake, affect, effect, fewer, farther, all that.
Right.
And they loved it, so I took those tricks and put it into a book.
Okay, we're going to get started again. All right? Stay with us here. You guys ready?
Yep.
Okay, here we go. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with my co-host Mark Hanf of Pacific Private Money and Robert Spinoza of RPM Mortgage. When we cut to the first commercial break, we asked this trivia question. Which comedian often says, "I don't care who you are, that's funny," and "Get it done"? Mark, you know the answer.
Well, no, I'm not familiar with those quotes, but I'm just guessing. Is it like Larry the Cable Guy?
It is Larry the Cable Guy from the Blue Collar Radio.
I just keep seeing his picture everywhere, and I got.
Oh, that
it just sounds like something he would say.
from Prilosec, I think it's what he's saying.
Not a
Push it
bad
now.
impression.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And we're also in the studio here with Ronnie Moore. Ronnie, we're going to ask you some more questions.
Okay, sounds good.
So, Ronnie, who wrote the book, Why Did I Say That? Communicating to keep your credibility, your cool, and your cash. And so, love the topic, Ronnie. You talk about in your book overcoming the need to be liked, and this is a big one for me.
Me too.
What can you elaborate on this a bit?
I can. And I refer to that as it applies to primarily when you're spending your money. But it's also true at work. It's wonderful to be liked. But if you try to be liked by everyone, everywhere, and you sacrifice your own best interests all the time, you're not going to like yourself. And at the end of the day, the only person who's going to be there with you when you put your head down is you. So it's really hard, especially I was raised where, as a girl, I was raised in a very traditional European family, and I was taught that I couldn't be direct. I had to be nice, even to people who were not nice to me. And I was always feeling icky all the time. So now I try to do both. I try to take care of myself and be as nice as I can be. But ultimately, I have to choose. I have to take care of myself.
Well, you hear the term, you can't please all people all the time. You end up pleasing nobody.
Yeah, and then the other
Right,
thing.
and you end up very tired.
I think there's another element to that of this, and that's time. And one of the things I've learned in my profession is that there is a time to be liked after you do or provide a great service, and people come to appreciate, trust, and like you. At that point, you've earned it. But to obtain it up front can, like you said, sometimes be very, very time-consuming and ineffective.
And why are they liking me up front? Is it something I earned?
Right.
Or is it a manipulation? And I couldn't agree with you more. It's wonderful when you do a great class or give great service or do your job well and someone likes and respects you. That's the best way to be liked, right?
I figured I came up with this phrase. That is that honor is given, but respect is earned.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you make that up?
I did. No, I actually did come up with that phrase.
Hey, Ronnie, so what was the motivation for writing the book, Why Did I Say That?
I mentioned before to everybody that I had a roof cave in and I was looking for a roofer. And after that, I realized that there were probably a dozen examples, whether it's when you have to spend your money or deal with your spouse or deal with a difficult boss, a number of things. I came up with about a dozen typical challenging communication issues we all deal with both personally and at work, and each one is now a chapter in the book. So that I can give you insight, and you're in this situation, what will work, or at the very least, what won't work, so you don't waste your time.
And so this is your second book, right, Ronnie? You also wrote a book on the written communication. Is that true?
I did, thank you. A couple of years before this one, I wrote a book on how to avoid common mistakes when you write, everything from fewer, less, affect, defect, to making sure you don't depend on your spell check and send something. We've all been there. You send something out, you thought spell check got it,
Well,
and then you're mortified.
yeah, Ronnie, I was going to say that. I'll bet part of this has to do with making sure that you don't hit the send button when you're angry. You know, you
Yes,
gotta reread them.
I talk a lot about writing offline.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually have a fake email address I use when I'm angry with someone, so I put that in the send box.
Wait a minute, so you're the one who's been sending me that stuff.
You know, it's interesting. I love this topic because I can't believe how few people actually write and communicate well.
I agree with you, Mark.
You know, it is amazing, and in my business, you know, I attribute a lot of my success to having better than average communication skills, both written and spoken. And so, but I'm just amazed at that. I don't know if it's an issue with public schools or what it is, but
Would you like to know the most common reason now?
Yeah, I would love
That'd
to.
be great.
It's all those little machines that everybody carries where they no longer can have the patience for anything more than 4 words in a row.
Well, I talk good, but I ain't write so good.
I know, right? Good. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, handheld devices, as convenient as they are turning people don't even have the patience to read a paragraph anymore.
Well, I've noticed that we've been trending in this direction of poorer and poorer communication, written and spoken skills, even before what is now, you know, almost endemic with society and having.
We're talking texts.
Talking texts, I know, right?
You know, in
So
the
it's only
day
getting worse.
where you can break up into marriage, fire someone over a machine, that's a pretty sad state. So we're constantly connected, but we're more disconnected than ever.
Ronnie, I'm going to jump right on that because I was going to say, what do you think is the key communication issue in interpersonal relationships? Because I think you're getting at that right now.
The other day when my husband texted me from upstairs, I think we have an issue.
Well, you know what's funny is the communication. I think people get lazy. I mean, when it used to be like, you know, how are you doing, and it's what's up, and then now it's just sup.
Right.
Sup.
Right. Well, when I write an article, as I do for different magazines, and they say, and we love the way you used to write, but could you just, basically they want me to write captions and pictures because nobody reads paragraphs anymore.
Yeah.
So what's the primary communication issue at work?
Now, there are a number, but the one that I think for me is most prevalent because it's harder to note is what I call stealth communication. It's, you know, somebody at work is obviously nasty or difficult. As hard as that is, at least you know what you're dealing with. But stealth, many different forms. I'm going to give you one. It's people who don't like to really confront the real issue and give mixed messages. And one example is something I call group blame. There's an example in my book where I talk about a boss who has a staff of 10. He has one person on that staff who's late all the time. And instead of communicating effectively about the problem with the one always late employee, he sends emails to all the employees about how we need to be on time.
It's The Office Space. Anyone see that movie where he's, you know, everything's communicating it through payroll that the guy's been let go? Well, he'll stop getting a paycheck and he'll know.
That is one of many forms of stealth communication, and it is really, I mean, think about it. The people come early and stay late. Think of how demotivating it is. They know exactly who that message is meant for.
Well, you know, and then you mentioned about the pictures and less communication, so I think I'll revert back to my Harold and the Purple Crayon book. That kind of fits in well with that.
So Ronnie, you've got a website too, right?
I sure do. It's Why Did I Say That Book? BOOK. Why Did I Say That Book.com. And if you go there, you can download a couple communication things free, and there's also a lot of books on CD and ebooks, and a lot of that money goes to charity, by the way.
Oh, good. Wow, that's great. Well, I'm certainly going to visit. This is a topic that intrigues me, and I'm looking forward to downloading your book.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be with you guys.
Good. Thank you very much, Ronnie.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Here, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That was insightful. I appreciate
Absolutely.
that. Okay, guys, we're going to cut to another commercial break. Before we do, we had another special trivia contest here. The Inspirations of the Season at the Ritz-Carlton Laguna Niguel in Southern California will have you relaxing with time by the Pacific. Enjoy overnight accommodations and breakfast for two starting at $450 a night. Be inspired this holiday season, which we're just getting to the end of. Reservations can be made by calling the Ritz-Carlton Laguna Niguel at 800-241-3333. That's 800-241-3333, or visit www.ritzcarlton/lagunainspirations.com. And here is the special trivia question. And the rules are that you have to email Edward at Best of Investing tonight by midnight. And with no previous winners on Best of Investing. And people with the correct answers are going to be chosen randomly. And then we'll announce it in a couple of weeks. And the winner's going to get a 2-night stay at the Laguna Niguel. So here's the question. Almost 20% of us did this last night. What did we do? That's kind of a tough one. Okay, and now we're going to go to our second commercial break. And here's the trivia question for that, for the famous comedians, right? What famous comedian used to say, "Now take my wife, please"? Now we have to go back in time for this one. The first 3 callers with the correct answer win a free 3-day, 2-night stay at the Lighthouse Resort. Robert is nodding his head yes. He thinks he knows the answer.
I'm old enough to remember.
Are you? Cool. Okay. And it's not W.C. Fields. Okay. Their website, lighthouseforfun.com. So the winner of this trivia question is going to win a free 3-day, 2-night stay at the Lighthouse Resort. Call 888-912-1190. That's 888-912-1190 to answer this question. What famous comedian used to say, "Now take my wife, please"? Call 888-912-1190. Make sure to include your name, your email address, and remember to speak slowly and spell out your information for us one letter at a time. And we'll be right back. Thanks, do that now. That's fine. He's teasing. Robert used to do that too. Okay, let's see here.
So the bullet points on that would suggest to me that banks are cherry picking. I mean, is that not what's going on when you start talking about, the average FICO score?
Yeah, I
mean, that's something worth talking about.
When you look at how high those have come up, I mean, if that's an average, if 707 is an average, and that's the denied ones, I mean,
Really?
but it certainly is representative of what I've seen in my pipeline from last few years. I mean, the average FICO is over 760, which is absurdly high across the consumer spectrum. So
good for you.
Which is why I brought it to his attention.
Yeah.
Because
I love this. Was there another Rob who forwarded this to you?
Yeah, Rob Chrisman.
Oh, okay.
You know him?
No,
Or
I don't.
I'll get you his info too. He sends out a daily mortgage industry newsletter. He's yeah. So
This is just amazing. Refis are 70%. That's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
No wonder, none of my, which I'm glad of, none of my clients can get their bank to even give them the time of day.
Yeah.
They're
Do you want
too
to get
busy.
into this, and then we'll get to email time?
Well, we'll do email
Do
first.
email first?
Yeah.
Okay.
email might prompt some of this stuff.
Okay,
So
sure.
there's-
Yeah, that's a very good question. Okay. You guys ready?
Yep.
And ready. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with my co-host Mark Hunt of Pacific Private Money and Robert Spinoza of RPM Mortgage. When we cut to the second commercial break, we asked this trivia question. What famous comedian used to say, "Now take my wife, please"? Robert, who was that?
That was Henny Youngman.
That was Henny Youngman. Very good.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to get right into email time here. And Mark, the email we received for you is, "If I invest with you, do you collect the monthly interest payments or do I?" You may have to kind of go in background.
So that's a
explain that.
question for a client of Pacific Private Money, and we are hard money lenders to real estate investors in the Bay Area. We make real estate loans to real estate investors, normally to either acquire real estate to buy, fix, and flip, or maybe to acquire rental property. And so that's a niche lending market that we serve in Northern California. And we use the funds of private individuals to fund those loans. And so generally one lender will fund one loan. Our average loan size is about $200,000. The range of sizes is anywhere from $75,000 to as high as $1 million. But by and large, we do about 10 to 15 loans per month, and the average loan size is about $200,000. And so I have dozens of clients, actually quite a bit more than that, but Bay Area residents who love to earn higher rates of interest by funding a real estate secured loan. And so the average interest that our clients earn starts out at about 8% for about a 12 to 24 month term loan. And so, I am a licensed real estate broker, and our company has all the required licensing, and we draw up loan documents, we manage the escrows, and our clients then fund those loans after the loan documents have been signed by the borrower, etc. So we also service the loans that we originate. What servicing means is we invoice the borrower for the monthly interest payment. It's usually an interest-only loan. That's usually what a hard money loan.
And do you send monthly invoices to them, or you send coupons, or how does that work?
Well, it's usually coupons in PDF form in an email. We don't necessarily, although some get invoiced and some don't. We have different levels of loan servicing, but generally speaking, we're invoicing the borrowers, and the borrowers send us their interest payment. We process that by putting it into our regulated trust account. We take a small fee off the top and then send the rest to the lender, the investor, once the check is cleared.
And after that fee, they're getting 8%.
After the fee,
so
they're getting a minimum of on average of 8%. And so we also do other things. We track to make sure the insurance policies on the property are current. We track real estate taxes, whether they're being paid, and we also send out 1099s and 1098s at the end of the year.
So lest anyone think that fee is going nowhere.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a nice service.
Well, the fee really that we earn for loan servicing is deferred compensation, and what I mean by that is that we charge some origination points on loans up front, but that number, has been reduced over time as the markets become more competitive. I mean, hard money lenders 10 years ago would typically charge 5, 6, 7, 8 points. I mean, it was really, really expensive money, and normally the people who were borrowing that money were in high distress. Whereas today, the private lending industry is really serving that niche of the market that the banks don't serve. In fact, we'll talk with Rob a little bit later about just how picky the banks have become when it comes to lending their money. So banks aren't making loans generally to real estate investors. We're filling that niche, and the price of money, while still expensive privately, expensive compared to bank lending, has come down. So we are lending money out more and more in single-digit rates instead of the 10, 11, 12, which used to be prevalent years ago. And the cost, the fees have come from 5 to 4 to 3, and sometimes 2 points. So really, and it really depends. I don't really have a pricing grid per se for the loans we do because it depends on the borrower.
Each loan's different.
Yeah, every loan's different. What's the loan to value? What's the borrower's profile? What's the property profile? So in any event, the answer to the question is yes. We service what we originate. So
but it's kind of nice though. You do, like you said, you'll follow the taxes, the insurance, and all that. So so the investor is just passively just getting coupons.
Right. No, that's exactly
very nice.
right.
Very nice. And how do people get a hold of you?
Well, we've got our website is pacificprivatemoney.com. That's actually our borrower website. We have a new investor website, which is pacificprivateinvestments.com. But you can get to that website by going to Pacific Private Money and clicking the link on the right-hand side. So, or of course, if you just want to know more about trust deed investing, which is what they call private lending when you're an investor, you can call our office at 415-883-2150. We'd be happy to give you more information.
Or go to
thebestofinvesting.com.
There you go. Okay.
Links everywhere.
Yeah, links everywhere. Exactly. In fact, we're going to be right now. There is another one up that I'm just kind of toying with to kind of get it together.
Our beta website to be announced soon.
Exactly. Well, bestofinvesting.net.
Okay.
So you go to that, and then you can still kind of get all the stuff because you get all the podcasts. Okay, Robert. Here's an email that seems right up your alley.
Okay.
If I use you as a mortgage broker, do you watch the daily interest rates to help me lock in at the best time?
I do. In fact, I watch throughout the day. I'm watching the prices on the MBS, mortgage-backed securities, and those will dictate to us when our lock desk might reprice for better or worse, depending on market activity. So obviously, just like with the stock market, intraday there's going to be a lot of volatility depending on economic updates or any economic news or anything geopolitically that might influence the markets. Well, that stuff's going to trickle down, and traditionally people used to look at the 10-year Treasury note, and I think that they always thought, follow that, and that's where rates will go. But there's been a disconnect on a lot of days between that and the mortgage-backed securities.
That's why it seems like it's more important to use a broker now rather than just go to the bank. I mean, my bank would kind of try to help me, but it would be like, we watch it on a monthly basis.
Yeah, those days are over. I mean, if you're really looking for the best rate and you're looking for the best outcome, I think is also important. Good people who do what I do well are minding that and managing the risk, just like an effective investment advisor would manage the risk to your portfolio. So too does an effective mortgage professional. Watch the market relative to your scenario, because your situation or your escrow may play out over 60 days, 45, 60 days, and if you get a novice and he locks you in for 30 or 45 days, well, what are you going to do with that hangover where you're going to need to extend your interest rate lock, possibly at your cost.
So, Rob, I heard you say that you're watching the rates, I guess the intra-day rate, the fluctuations during the day. What's like the highest you've seen interest rates for consumer home loans fluctuate during a one-day period?
Oh, that's a great question. You have to go back a few years, because in the last couple of years we've had some remarkably good stability.
Well, that's good.
But yeah, and that is good to know. But back in like 2005, 2006, we saw some days where I remember a day where rates went up 0.75% in a single day.
That's a lot.
And that was relative to a Fed statement. Or, we used to watch what the Fed would do in terms of raising or lowering interest rates. They haven't done that in some time. Obviously, the Fed funds rate has been stable. But when it wasn't, man, you could see some severe volatility.
Was there volatility recently over this whole fiscal cliff issue?
Another great question. There was, and it was exacerbated by the fact that it played out over the holidays. So investors and the markets in general didn't know what to expect when they showed up for work in January. So managing that risk, great question. Yeah, absolutely. Managing that was important.
How are we doing now that we're into January?
We started off relatively where we left off in December, so net effect 0. But yesterday, an interesting thing happened where some of the Fed minutes were revealed, and some of the Fed players felt that the QE3 may not go on indefinitely, and they stated that, and that roiled the markets a little bit. So we're starting the year a little bit higher than we ended December, but for 2012 we ended up with an average rate of about 3.35% on a 30-year fixed loan. Pretty remarkable.
Yeah. So, Robert, how do people get a hold of you if they want you to watch interest rates for them?
Absolutely.
Lock in.
Toll-free number 877-270-5959. I'm with RPM Mortgage. That you can go to rpm-mtg.com and bring me up as a loan officer, Robert Spinoza, and email address rspinoza@rpm-mtg.com.
Very good. Okay, we're going to cut to our third and final commercial break, and here's the trivia question. What famous comedian often would say, "I don't get no respect"? The first 3 callers with the correct answer win a free 3-day, 2-night stay at the Lighthouse Resort. Their website is lighthouse4fun.com. Call 888-912-1190. That's 888-912-1190 to answer this question. What famous comedian would often say, "I don't get no respect"? I gotta fix the tie when I do that. Make sure to include your name, your email address, and remember to speak slowly and spell out your information one letter at a time. And when we come back, Robert's got some really, really interesting things that we have history about interest rates. So make sure you stay with us, and we will be right back.
Indeed.
Keep them hanging on the edge of their seats. Isn't that right, Captain?
Some exciting interest rate information. Hysterical information.
There's this guy, I think it was from, it's called Misfortune or something. I heard it on the radio. He's like,
oh, I hear the Misfortune guy.
Yeah, he's like, I mean, on the ratings and stuff, he's way, way, way down there. But anyway, it's just, it's all this stuff about why you should never invest in IRAs and all that kind of stuff. Thinking, you get a tax deduction. You can invest in an IRA or outside of an IRA.
He's an annuity guy, right?
Well, he hadn't. I don't know.
It's hard to pin him down,
I think
right?
he is. I think I went to his website, Misfortune, because it sounded intriguing, and I like to usually check out those guys. I hear them, but I think he's an annuity guy.
Well, see, here the question is,
annuities are great if you know you're going to not need the money for 20 years, and you can lock in
a high interest rate.
Right, exactly.
Well, I tried to. The thing is, he sent me a bunch of links, and I'm watching, listening, and reading stuff, and there's not a darn thing about where to invest. And so I sent an email back because I'm going to do a webinar just to kind of hear the stuff. It's like I sent an email. I said I didn't get anything from this information so far. Is it stocks, bonds, gold?
Well, I used to work for a guy who was high up on the corporate. He he was a C-level guy, and that was his thing. Is he used to bash every idea that came through, and finally, in one of the meetings, someone just said, "So what would you do?"
Yeah.
You know, it's like.
Yeah.
Don't tell me what not to invest in.
You know, he has a very specific program, and again, I'm pretty sure what you're going to find is some annuity-based, insurance-based product.
Which, I mean, obviously,
Can be good.
Can be good. It's not a catch-all for everything.
A lot of guys hate them. I mean, they'll on their show, on the radio, they'll say, "Never buy an annuity." Period.
Yeah.
If the word annuity comes out of that guy's mouth, run the other way is what they'll say. And that, I think that's oversimplifying. But
It is because there can be some cases.
Even the option arm loans in the right hands were great products. Right?
I mean, I love my option arm.
Yeah, you know.
Until I lost my house.
Well, if they were sold to first-time home buyers who didn't know any better,
right,
it's
exactly.
a different story. But you know.
Anyway,
Oh, let me see.
I didn't say that. Just kidding. Didn't lose my house.
Okay, we did exactly 30 minutes. So we have this time we have one.
Oh, good. Well, that's good because we can.
Because I have an interesting
between
quote here too.
Rob's two.
Okay.
I like both of these things. I think there's some good stuff to chat about.
Cool. So what do we have on the segment?
12 minutes?
12 and a half minutes.
Yeah. Okay.
A little more than that. Okay. So.
Do you want to talk first about the email or the 40 years of what do you think? What's more exciting to you?
You know what? I'll try and blow through some of these things quickly, and then maybe that'll prompt some questions that'll tie off of that.
All right. Cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. And away we go. Welcome back to the Best of Investing. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Mark Hunt of Pacific Private Money, California's fastest growing private lender, and Robert Spinoza of RPM Mortgage. And Robert is going to. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. I got to get into the trivia question here. Right?
Yeah.
What famous comedian would often say, "I don't get no respect"?
Rodney.
That's right.
Rodney Dangerfield. That is
funny.
correct. All right. And Robert, we promised the listeners when they came back from commercial break that you had some very interesting history.
Yeah. But before we do that, I got to tell you that my favorite Rodney joke was he was going in for heart surgery, I think it was, and someone asked him on his way, and they said, you know, he goes, if everything goes well, or he goes, if everything goes well, I'll be out of here in a week. If everything goes poorly, I'll be out of here in 2 hours. Something like that. But anyway, Rodney.
With a toe tag on.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, I was at this time of year. You know, it's really interesting because I love reading predictions, and I love looking back at last year's predictions for where rates are going to be. And everybody, obviously, when they talk to me about locking a rate, they're going to ask, where do you see rates going? Normally in the short term, but so what I did is I went and I looked at Freddie Mac's 30-year fixed mortgage index, basically tracking the 30-year fixed loans since 1971.
Wow.
And it revealed a lot of really cool things. Probably the headline number and the one that makes everyone laugh. Rates peaked, 30-year fixed rates peaked in October of 1981. At anyone's guess?
18%.
18.45.
I remember. I actually
that was the
remember.
prime rate, right? Or
No, prime was 20.
Prime was,
or 21.
Oh, okay.
So when you look at that, you go, okay, and we're obviously at the lows right now historically. So what we have to take into consideration with that, people going into escrow looking at properties saying, is this a good time to buy? Well, know that your 30-year fixed rate currently in the low threes is about 5% under the average over those 4 years, which is about 8.6%. Okay.
And the price of houses, I mean, it's come down quite a bit.
That's a good point.
Not obviously from the 1940s.
We have to look at that relatively to that, or relative to that. But the other things that I was really interested in knowing, a lot of people will look at their mortgage options and they'll be afraid of what could happen in the future. And what I found in that is when you look at, for example, over a decade, I was hard pressed in one instance in the 80s that the spread from high to low was 9%. But other than that, in the other decades, less than 5% or right around 5%. So you look forward 10 years and you say, well, what if rates are spread 5% from here? We're back at the 8s, which is the average. And obviously nobody wants to be paying 8 in this environment on a conventional.
Of course,
loan.
if they're earning 14% in their CDs,
different story, right?
Well, I think, and that's what a lot of people are looking ahead to, and that's why there's so many predictions out there. Just wait, interest rates are going to spike.
Right.
Because I know just from a prime rate perspective, if you go back 20, 25 years, the average prime rate was 6%. So now it's, what, 3?
Yeah.
Just so it's and you're looking at mortgage rates,
Right.
which are tracking the same
You also
way.
have to look at the time period, right? I mean, if it stayed at 12% for how long? Is that the mean, modium,
Right.
median, mode, or
Modium, like you used to
modium?
know.
Yeah.
Well, and that's something I looked at too, because when I looked at the year to year, so starting 2013 now, people saying, well, where could rates go? Well, that average in a calendar year is 1.25%. So I mean, if you look at the end of this year, would rates be at 2.5 or would they be at 4.75? But the important thing about it, whether it's either side of that or just out of it, know that you have sort of history on your side with that. You don't see these wild fluctuations. We're not going, historically speaking, we're not going from 3 to 18 this year.
Yeah.
And even despite all of the other things that could happen, there's not a historical precedent.
Well, that's the good news, I think, is that the Fed's come out and basically said, look, our goal or our target's to hold rates steady and low, up until, well, I guess, didn't they say 2015? But I guess that depends on also the employment rate, right? Because they have a target employment rate. But what I thought was also interesting, because you brought in some other statistics, Rob, and that has to do with the fact that, and this is something we've talked about in the show over and over again, is that the banks are not lending at the rate they were lending, say in 2005.
The pool is way smaller.
Right, so anybody could get a loan in 2005. We've all talked about that. The old joke was if you could fog a mirror, you could get a bank loan, you could get 100% financing, et cetera, et cetera. But nowadays, the banks, the pendulum's really swung the other direction. You've got some almost shocking statistics about the average loan that's closing today. And what I thought was most interesting, and I'll just grab one of these, it says that the FICO scores on closed loans are averaging 750. This was from November. FICO scores on denied loans averaged 707.
Right.
That's just stunning to me.
Now, what was? 707 is a pretty high score.
It is. It is.
What was it denied? What else caused?
Well, you don't know the entire profile, but if I think the important thing to look at there is if you're saying 750 for approved and 707 for denied, well, you've got a 40-point difference there, and what's happening in those 40 points? Is it their debt ratio? Are they putting more down? Are they more creditworthy in general? Hard to interpret from that, but I think Mark's point is if you're denying 707s, my God, because those people are, for the most part, entirely creditworthy.
Well, and then you look at the very first bullet point there. It says the refinance closing rate was 52% based on applications started 90 days prior.
Right.
And these are statistics from the month of November 2011. So,
2012.
And then, or 2012, right? The closing rate on purchases was 60%. So that still seems to me, and again, I don't know how this bears out historically, but that sure seems like low percentages, low percentage likelihood of closing.
This is why all cash buyers are going to get their.
Well, sure, and that's why people are going to hard money lenders like Pacific Private Money to get their loans, because if you're only got a 60% chance of closing on a purchase, that's a 40% chance you might lose your deposit.
Right. And this is the kind of thing too.
It's crazy.
Looking at these numbers, for me, who are these people working with? Because certainly
they're not working with Rob.
They're not working with mortgage. No, absolutely not.
Well, here's the other question: are those personal residences or all properties?
These are personal residences.
Okay. You don't do. Mark doesn't do
residential.
Residential, but it could be investors.
Yeah, it could be investors.
Okay, those people.
Not likely though. I think the banks are so overwhelmed right now with purchase and refinance that they don't need to do investment property. If you get an investment property loan, it's more because you've got a personal relationship with your regional bank.
Okay, so the closing ratio would be even less then for investor.
It could be. To break it out of that, hard to say, but I agree with you. Because they're a riskier loan inherently. So if you're not flying with the 707 on an investment property,
flying with the 707, I like a Boeing 707.
you probably to have a loan approved on an investment property, I would say the 750 average would have to be 20, 30 points higher.
Yeah. One other bullet point that stands out to me, Rob, and it would be interesting to get your take on this. says refis accounted for 68% of total production. So that's an astounding number. So, you know, a year from now, when everybody's refied and if rates are still low, what I wonder is that what it's going to take for the banks to start loosening up their, you know,
We hope. Yeah, we hope. I mean, that dynamic, the refinance dynamic, is interesting to watch because certainly we've been in a refinance environment for darn near 10 years now, believe it or not, because rates have continued on a steady clip downward. So it's always been possible to refi, but at some point you run out of room to do that. Are we here now? We very well could be. And then what is the industry going to look like when that changes? How will it make up the production otherwise?
Yeah, so it's 70% roughly refi traffic right now. As that number dips down, you know, one might expect, if you're going to predict and use a crystal ball, that the banks will loosen their lending criteria and maybe actually even begin to lend once more on a more meaningful basis to real estate investors. You know, meanwhile, us hard money lenders are going to enjoy the traffic because we're getting a lot of applications these days.
Right. It's hard to know for sure where the industry will go with a change in the interest rate dynamic, but you know, what we've seen over the last few years has largely been tied to what has the purchase market done in the recent past. You know, you were looking for a while and looking into the abyss, 2008, 2009 property.
Just to look off the side for just a quick minute. This is not my thought for the day. This is called the quote for the day. Okay, and I want you to tell me who said this. All right. The budget should be balanced. The treasury should be refilled. Public debt should be reduced. The officialdom should be tempered and controlled, and the assistance to foreign lands should be curtailed or it cut off a little bit here.
That'd be tough.
Yeah, hold on. People must again learn to work instead of living on public assistance. You say it's Howard Taft, going back to 1919.
Probably Barry Obama.
No.
I'm going to go to Thomas Jefferson.
How about Cicero in 55 BC?
Well, if it's the Price is Right, I'm closest, right?
No, you're still over. Dang.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Officialdom, I haven't heard that one.
Well, that's why I was going to say I should have made it more. Of course, this is in Latin. I had to read it.
Yeah, interpreting.
Yeah. Mark, what is going on real estate wise? You know.
Well, you know, anybody reading the papers this past week again, it's been more of the same. Prices, surprisingly, are going up in most markets faster and further than I think any of us predicted a year ago.
Right, exactly.
Because I know myself, I'm in the market looking to move up and looking maybe to buy a home in another neighborhood in the Bay Area, and I pretty much thought, you know, earlier in 2012 that I had at least a good year or two that prices were going to remain stable, and now all of a sudden I'm going, oh crud, I'm watching prices and markets go up 10-15%. And that's assuming you find something you like that isn't being bid on by 20 other people. Right. So it's a wild market right now, and I think a lot of us in real estate are waiting for more inventory to be released by the banks. Please release more inventory because you know, that's I think it's a false balance that we're experiencing right now. The increase in prices, I don't think it's.
I wonder if they'll open the floodgates to the banks. They start opening up a little bit, they see the price, and then they just flood it. Who knows?
Yeah, not me. I don't know, and I don't know what motivates them to view.
I don't think any of us know. That's the problem.
All right, guys, we're going to come to our thoughts for the day. Right. But by the way, you remember talking about mean, modium? You said modium?
No,
right?
Imodium.
I know. I was going to ask you, how's your plumbing? Okay. Okay, thoughts for the day. If it weren't for the fact that the TV and the refrigerator are so far apart, I wouldn't get any exercise at all. And if at first you don't succeed, keep on sucking till you do succeed. Okay, tune in to a couple of weeks because we're going to be preempted because of Cal basketball. Tune in a couple of weeks to the Best of Investing. We're going to be giving away 9 more free vacations for answering trivia questions, and a Happy New Year to you all.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm Edward Brown. We're wishing you the best of investing. So long.
All right.
Good show. Good show.